The last of the major pro sports leagues are off and rolling, and college basketball is ready to go as well. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, and NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering, news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the hoops betting action, along with every sport available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Suave, 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 suave. I've been in my bag for a while, I'm invincible. Story of a young boss, grinding shit get critical. Calling on my bros one time, cause you special. I had some hoop dreams of right rounds for my mentor. Every target that I shoot is on point like a pencil. Different route, change relationships, I'm so sorry. Came up from the trenches and I made it, I say hardly. Now
Alrighty, guys, we are back with another episode of the What's in Your Bag podcast presented by Bet Online. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Robinson, and today we are joined by another special guest on the podcast. But before we get into introducing our guests, you guys already know what's coming. We got to get the business out of the way. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you guys stop what you're doing. Go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. It goes a long way to getting this show out there to everybody who needs to see it. If you're hearing this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating, drop a comment, give us some feedback. You know what I'm saying? Positive or negative, man. We all appreciate, positive reinforcement, positive criticism, whichever way it goes, man. It goes a long way. That was my guy, Pull Up Tay, on the intro. It's gonna be him on the outro as well. One of the hottest up and coming artists out of DMV. Make sure you guys are streaming his music. But without further ado, guys, we are pleased to be joined by yet another guest on our creator series. This is somebody who is super talented, has done a plethora of work around the NBA, and has actually just secured a new job with the NBA. We are pleased to be joined by the newest NBA social content on-site project manager, Ashley Tumlinson, formerly with the San Antonio Spurs as well. Ashley, thank you for joining us today.
Project employee. I'm not a manager.
Project employee. See, look,
No manager role.
But look, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations are in order for the new role with the NBA. That's huge. So definitely thank you for joining us today, Ashley. Appreciate you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you for having me for sure.
No doubt. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we want to definitely just discuss your new role with the NBA. That's super exciting. And obviously we're going to get into your journey with the Spurs and everything. But, before we get into all that, I know you're currently based in San Antonio, a Texas girl through and through, man. So I got to ask you, talk to me about the 1B hysteria going on right now. Everybody's obviously hype about the Spurs getting the number one overall pick and the phenomenon that's Victor Wembanyama. So what's the vibes out there right now in San Antonio, man? Does it look like this is going to be another Tim Duncan, David Robinson type situation? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the vibes out there?
The vibes are definitely crazy. It's funny in sports, you have your like ride or dies, but then you have the people that, switch up all the time. I'm guilty of it myself, but so that's I think been the most interesting, going from an empty arena. I mean, it wasn't completely empty last year, but emptier to, we had a sold out home opener. So it's crazy. As far as comparisons go, I don't think he's going to be like anybody else. I think he's in his own category. He's his own monster in the greatest way possible. And he's just an impeccable person as well. So he's a gorgeous person on and off the court. I think fans of basketball, humans everywhere, are in for a treat for a long ways to come, for sure.
That's dope. Now, have you got a chance to stand next to 1B? Is he as tall as he looks on TV?
I haven't, but I've seen him stand next to some of my old coworkers, and he seems like he's pretty up there.
No,
I don't know if you saw that video of him doing Slender Man for Halloween.
Yes.
On point. I mean, he knocked that out of the park.
He owned it.
It was set up for him. It was his role.
Right. He bodied that. So the DM, I'm for those of you guys who don't know, I'm born and raised in the DMV. DMV through and through. Shout out DC, Maryland, Virginia area for those who don't know or think the DMV is the place you go to get your car registered. DC, Maryland, Virginia, DMV. And I've never been to San Antonio before. You know what I'm saying? So what's the vibes out there in San Antonio? Because I feel like when we talk about Texas, it's always, Dallas and Houston, you know what I'm saying, for all the vibes. So what's it like down there in San Antonio?
It's very family oriented. Family is literally like the first word that comes to mind. Even if you don't have like blood family in the city, I think just the city and the culture is extremely welcoming. They're very heavy on Latin culture, which I grew up in the Valley, so I love that. Yeah, just very family oriented. I like that it's quote unquote a big city, but it's not a huge city. You go like north an hour and a half and you're in Austin, and it's definitely much more of a busy city vibe. But like San Antonio has downtown, they have a lot to do. They have the strip. Like there's definitely a lot to do, but it's small enough to where it still feels really, really homey. And the people are great and the food is great.
Now, how is the nightlife down there? Is there any good nightclubs to go to for the good San Antonio Spurs players on a Saturday night? You know what I'm saying? What's the vibe like down there for the shenanigans?
I will say the nightlife is what you make of it. I think it's definitely who you're with. It's not where you're at. But I mean, there's one club, 1902. Shout out to them. They're they're doing the thing. But other than that, yeah, it's not really. It's definitely who you're with.
Listen, that's a very political answer. A very a wonderful answer right there. It's who you're with. You have a great time with people. I love that. I love that.
It really is though.
No, that's facts. That's facts. So I want to kind of get into your journey a little bit, man, because I feel like you have an interesting journey into just the whole photography, creative landscape. I did a little bit of research, and I read that you went to college for business and marketing, stuff like that. So how did you get into the photography landscape, man? I feel like, you mentioned previously in the article that you kind of have always been somebody who likes to take pictures, but I feel like, especially in today's day and age, I feel like everybody's trying to do the little film thing and take pictures and stuff like that. So going from that to actually making that your career, what went into that thought process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned it, as well as always wanting to take pictures. Like in my family, even I was always the one with my phone out. I still am. I'm always the one. And when I was younger, it's funny, they would be like, put your phone down, live in the moment, blah, blah, blah. And now they text, I get at least one text from a family member, hey, do you have this picture of this? And I'm like, you see, if I wasn't with my phone now, you would have had these memories. But I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to kind of snap the picture and then put the phone down and be in the moment, and then kind of read the room, navigate, okay, I can post this in an hour when I leave here. Instagram doesn't care. They're not going to know. And safety wise, as a girl, I'd much rather also put stuff out after I'm gone. Yeah. But that's a whole other conversation. Yep. But yeah, just constantly capturing moments. I think it's bigger than taking photos and taking videos for me. I feel like that's such a surface level statement. I literally feel like you're capturing a memory. When you take a video, yes, you're living in it, but you're never gonna live it again. So I think of I've lost my grandma, and in that, as heavy as it was, it's just beautiful to be able to not only have the memories of her, but look back and actually see them. And that's just not something you can get with anything else. That's the creative side of it. I was always one that wanted to be my own boss. I grew up I don't want to work for anybody else. F corporate America, F the white man, literally just as a minority, kind of you just grow up in this different mindset. But as I've gotten older, I've realized I love stability. I like to be stable and know I'm being taken care of. And unfortunately, in this world, you need money to do that. I think everyone should just like live on a farm, not have anything to do, no worries in the world. I think that's what God intended, but that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and I think like my journey into the creative space professionally was just me navigating using my passion and finding a way to monetize it. Because I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, you need money in this world to survive, to live, to thrive. But you also don't want to be miserable. You don't want your work to be called work. I feel like what's that saying? Like if you really love it, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, it's like if
Some
you love
people.
you never working a day. You never work a day.
Yeah, exactly. As cheesy as it is, I feel like it's so true. If you love what you do, you love waking up, you love the 3 hour sleeps. It's all worth it. So that's definitely how I got started. I played sports all my life. Being a former athlete, I know that there's so much more that goes into our craft and who we are and our makeup as a human than our sport and the training that we do. Like you have to eat, you have to have hobbies to stay sane. Like you have a family, you have favorite foods, you have favorite colors, you have favorite, like you have a personality. So I think just kind of like bridging all those things, like having to make money, having your passion, and then also like showing the human portion of, I think the normal person sees these amazing athletes and just labels them as amazing athletes. And I'm just like so passionate now about, yes, showcasing they are amazing athletes. They're amazing at what they do, but they're also human. They also have purpose. They also have emotion. They also have, everything that the common person, you and I have. Right. So yeah, just kind of like navigating that. I still don't know what it's going to look like in the long run. I'm here for the ride. Any door that God opens, I'm walking in full force.
Facts. So one thing that I'm curious, and I feel a lot of people are probably curious, is like, I think everybody has this dream, of like making it to the league per se, right? Or like getting to the NBA, whatever that goal is, NFL, like working in that kind of landscape. And especially nowadays when everybody's picking up a camera, everybody's trying to create content and stuff, right? How did you go about pursuing that role with the Spurs as far as like preparing yourself, as far as maybe applying for jobs, LinkedIn, like networking? Like we've had a bunch of different conversations on the podcast about like, oh, I got my job through a relationship and like meeting this person and having a conversation and kind of connecting the dots there. For other people who say, yeah, well, I've never really been a relationship person. It's not really my personality. I've been, a LinkedIn diving and doing that kind of stuff, right? So for you, when you were going through that process of trying to like, have that security and obtain this job with the Spurs, how were you able to kind of secure that opportunity and kind of make that NBA dream a reality?
Yeah. I think you touched on it. Like every person's journey is going to be different. And I think it's just important for people to stay true to what they feel is natural to them. Like for me, I have maybe 4 posts on LinkedIn. So like I need to get better at it.
Same.
I'm being completely honest. But if LinkedIn is your thing, like use it to the best of your ability. If Instagram is your thing, which it was mine, like use it to the best of your ability. Find out, kind of work with the algorithm. It gets annoying, but reaching out to people, sending DMs, liking photos, like interacting, it's all through a screen. And I feel like sometimes it can be really overwhelming because you feel like it's not real. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like I feel like once you start a conversation with someone, it can build into so much. I'm really, really heavy on relationships. I feel like in this industry, people in any industry, really, people will say it's networking. Yep. I view it as relationships, just because I feel like people have more value to them than what they can offer you. I think if somebody can't do something for me, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be friendly to them. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna want the best for them. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna want to go to dinner. Like, I'm not someone who's just entertaining things that in the long run will have a benefit for me. Like, that's just not who I am. So I think just being yourself and cherishing those authentic relationships is what's key. At least it was key for me. With Spurs, it was actually through a family friend that I was able to get an employee referral. So that kind of got me like on their radar as far as getting an interview. And then once I got the interview, it was up to me to kind of like run with it and sell myself. And yeah, it's just like, once you get the opportunity, it's just going all in and knowing if this is what you want, you go for it and you put your all into it.
Yeah, 100%. So once you're there, like once you're working with the Spurs, right? You mentioned that how you kind of had to work quickly and think quickly and kind of like make things happen when it comes to that whole creative process. What was that experience like for you trying to adjust on the fly in a new environment and trying to figure out how to create content, what works, what doesn't work? Especially you obviously have a volleyball background and, being able to play volleyball previously, like coming into a basketball space where it's a different sport, but having to still be able to produce content and learn the terminology and what's going on the court and stuff like that. What was that whole process like?
Yeah, I actually also played basketball.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah,
Cool.
so I was definitely familiar with the game, familiar with, the lingo, familiar with all of that. I feel like it made it easier. But yeah, I mean, the process was just being able to shift. And I spoke on it in a previous interview, kind of just, knowing who you are, even though you're growing consistently, just standing firm in who you are as like a person, and trusting yourself, trusting your talent, trusting that if you have to make a decision in 3 seconds, that you're going to make the right one. And if you don't, it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's going to crucify you because maybe I shouldn't say that word, but no, nobody's going to yell at you for, getting the wrong angle on a video, or the exposure is too high, or you didn't get 50,000 likes, you only got 30. Like, it's not, at the end of the day, it's not a huge deal. Like, of course we're striving for the best all the time, but I think taking that pressure off of being perfect is super, super important.
Yeah, no, for sure. Looking back kind of on that time, like covering the NBA, what were some of your, I guess favorite memories, favorite times, maybe on the job, on the road, like just working with players? Like, is there any one story or memory that kind of sticks out the most?
Okay, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but Mike Mancias, he is LeBron's trainer.
Yes.
Okay, so he's actually a family friend. He is from the same small town that I'm from. But his, I believe, cousin is best friends with my dad. So they've kind of all like intertwined. Everyone in the valley knows each other, like everybody. But just being able to connect with him, and I spoke to him when we played the Lakers, and just kind of like, it was kind of like a surreal moment of the city that we're from. You're really not supposed to make it out. Everybody stays here and they kind of stay, they're just comfortable. It's like, as much as I love my city, I think it's so secluded from the rest of, I can't even say Texas. I feel like the rest of America is pretty much Mexico and Texas. Like, if we're being honest, it's not even in America. Like, it is technically, but it's really not. We're just so far away from everything that it's comfortable. You're kind of like in your own world. You don't really, like, if you don't get out, you don't really know that there's that much out there. So just kind of like being able to like chop it up with him and be like, okay, like we're both here, like we're both doing the thing, like it's cool. That was a really cool moment. I guess as far as like player wise and interaction, I don't have a specific like thing that comes to mind. I think just overall being able to see them in their authentic light and capturing them, you know, like at camps or we had an event at the food bank, just kind of seeing them outside their basketball element is always precious. Like just seeing their personality and who they are.
Yeah. No, that's dope. I want to kind of give you a chance to talk about that a little more because I know that you mentioned in the previous article that you did your Hispanic heritage and something that you're very proud of. And I think as a minority in this space and something, now you're working for the NBA instead of a huge corporation, like I love the fact that we have more minorities and more, brown people, black and brown people in these spaces, in these rooms that are taking up these roles and stuff like that. So for you, what does that mean to you to be able to wear that on your sleeve and I guess be somebody who people from your town or from where you're from also can look to you and be like, yo, like I can do that as well. Because we all know that at the end of the day, it's all about representation. You know what I'm saying? And having somebody that looks like you and has been where you've been and walked in your shoes, having the opportunity to be able to look at them and say, hey, like they're there, so I can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that mean to you?
It means the world, honestly. One of the girls I grew up playing volleyball with reached out to me recently, and I used to look up to her. Like I looked up to her my entire volleyball career. Like we had the same jersey number. Like she was a few years older than me, but I was always like, I want to be like her. Just her game, her personality, like everything like that. And she reached out to me, and she also had always been like in the creative space. We worked like we love to take pictures together, like yearbook, like all that kind of stuff, like taking pictures at like football games, like the whole high school experience. But she told me, she was like, she's a teacher now, and she's like, seeing you achieve, things that you talked about when we were in high school has like ignited a fire in me to pick up the camera again. She's like, people told me, because we're from the same small city, she's like, people told me to be realistic. They told me, you're like, that's never going to happen. You just need to get a normal job, something that's going to give you a steady paycheck and live your life pretty much. And it sounds so like, damn, like, why would someone tell you that? But I think a lot more people experience that than we would like to admit. And so it means the world to be able to be someone that anyone can look up to or look at, even if it's through Instagram and surface level, and just kind of be like, okay, they're doing it. Like, why not me? And I think that's the mentality that I've had. I still, like this NBA job, it still doesn't feel real. I just texted my dad this morning and I was like, bruh, I work for the NBA. Like, what? And it's not even like getting caught up in like the hype of like, oh my God, it's the NBA. But it's like taking a step back. It's like, I know you get it. Like, it's the NBA. It's not like, oh my God, it's the NBA, but it's the NBA. Like, yeah, just, and I'm like impact over influence 1,000%. I feel like if I can help one person believe in themselves and believe in their dream, even if it's through a picture on my story, like I feel like I've served my purpose.
100%. And I think that I know 100% what you mean, when it comes like, oh, it's the NBA. Like, I think that that's such a huge thing because like at the end of the day, people who come from our communities don't get those type of opportunities. That's the other situation. Like, we're not often able to walk in these type of rooms if you don't have somebody who you can make a phone call to and say, hey, like, can you hook me up type of thing. It's very hard to get in those type of situations. So I feel like one thing that you just said during your response that I think resonated a lot with me was when people this idea of, oh, be realistic, like, get a regular. And it's like I always hated when other people will try to put limitations on you or what you can do. And it's like, just because you don't feel like it's realistic for you doesn't mean it's realistic. It's not realistic for me. And when people try to limitations on what you can accomplish on your dreams, like that's how people stay in certain situations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I definitely just, hats off to you and just for being able to kind of continue to push through that. And, your friend, obviously, hopefully you're able to get back on the horse as well and pursue her dreams. I know that she will, obviously, because now that, I think like I said, it's different when you can see somebody, but
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's something that always frustrated me is like people will be quick to kind of try to shoot your dreams down or put a cap on what you can accomplish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So um I don't
And
know.
I think it's just taking it with a grain of salt, really, because it's like I'm such an easygoing person that I feel like if I'm ever like, because that's been told to me in the past.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like taking it with a grain of salt and just being like, maybe that's your opinion. Like, I've seen that video that's like, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Like literally that's me in my head. When people like doubt or say things, I'm like, okay, like that's your opinion. I'm not gonna diss you for it. I'm not gonna think of you differently. Like if I hope your stuff works out for you, like I'm fully supportive. Like I know deep down, I know what I was made for. And I think even in this role, as big as it is, as big as a company as it is, I feel like I'm just a vessel. Like I'm literally just somebody here that's put in a place to tell these stories. It's bigger than me. It's not about me at all. But yeah.
No, for sure. So kind of getting into the opportunity with the NBA, what would you say you're most excited for? Like, is there a project that you're looking forward to, or just I think when it comes to these situations, like man, like I don't know, being on the floor at Staples Center or crypto.com arena now. But I just feel like there's so much opportunity to be able to be in certain rooms, have certain experiences, like maybe cover the finals, travel. Like, what would you say you're most excited for entering this new role with the NBA?
I will say at the top of my list, the team I'm gonna get to work with. I'm ecstatic to be able to work with them. And I think that kind of helped me in a sense. When I started at Spurs, I kind of like did a lot of homework on people in the industry because it was my first year like actually being engulfed in the industry. So I didn't know a lot of people. And I made it a point to kind of like not reach out to people in terms of like having conversations, but just like add people to my network that I knew if I was scrolling, it would motivate me. And it was people who were similar to me and were trying to chase the same dreams as I was. So I added people from my current team on Instagram. So they were able to see, I mean, obviously I don't know how much they've paid attention to my journey. But just having that like surface level connection and being able to see, like the work, I think helped in terms of like being able to pitch myself for this role in like specific terms, like ability wise. I feel like it was definitely an advantage. And then kind of on the flip side, getting to see the surface level of their personalities. I feel like, hopping on a Zoom interview, it kind of was like, oh, it's a familiar face. Like, it's really nice to just not know that, or to know that it's somebody that's familiar, the person is real, they have a personality. So yeah, I think definitely the team that I'm going to be working with is what I'm most excited for. They're amazing. I saw a few of them at the huge dome game last year from afar. And I was like, in my head, I was just like, I'm going to be there. Like, I'm going to be their coworker one day. And now that it's happening, it's kind of like, is this real? So that's what I'm most excited for. And then aside from that, I think traveling, obviously, I love to travel. I'm someone that loves to experience the world, even if it's just like immediate, Texas cities or wherever I'm going to be covering. Being from a small town, I think any time I was able to get out, it's just kind of like, I love it. And I don't have a boyfriend, I don't have kids, I don't have a dog. Like I'm good to go anywhere I want to go. So traveling, seeing cities and getting to tell stories at the end of the day, like getting to showcase these guys in a light that I think the normal person typically wouldn't get to see, or, you know, just giving them some sort of access that, you know, like I think all the time of people who use up their life savings to come to a game. Yeah. And, you know, they do that because of how much they look up to these guys, but they do that because they can relate to them, and they can relate to them because they're human and they see their personality beyond the court. So I think just being able to kind of like be that middleman is just really powerful.
Yeah. No, I think that's super exciting. I think you bring up a good point in just how trying to showcase these players, like, because what more they have going on and things like that. And I feel like today's culture in 2023, like, there's never been a better time for players to kind of showcase other aspects of their lives. I feel like now, and we're kind of talking about it a little bit off air, with like, I know so many photographers now who are like working for people individually and working for players, and players have their own content teams, and they have marketing managers and business managers and people who are getting them into Paris Fashion Week and stylists and like getting them front row of all these shows and all these different things that they're into. So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, just based on your experience, like from the branding and marketing side and kind of meshing that with the photography landscape and things like that, what are your thoughts on this new era of athletes today? You know, and I feel like you had this a couple years ago, you had this whole, you know, more than athlete and the whole shut up and dribble thing, where people were like, nah, just stick to your sport and don't have anything basketball that you got going on. And it's like, now I feel like if you're not doing anything other than basketball, so yeah, like you tripping, you know what I'm saying? So I just kind of want to get your 2 cents on that, you know, on just, I guess, today's athlete and, you know, where you think this is going. And I mean, you're obviously starting a new role with the NBA. Like, the future, I feel like it's only going to open up more and more doors and more lanes for players to express themselves outside of the court.
100%. I feel like we've only started. I feel like, I mean, they've always had a personality, right?
Yeah.
I think they're just becoming more comfortable now trusting and showcasing that. And I think that's where these content teams come in, and it's built on trust. I mean, you have to trust that, you know, if the camera's rolling 24/7 because that's the content that we need, it's trusting that if I do something that may be seen in a negative light or taken the wrong way, I trust you enough to, one, not put it out, two, not keep it for your own, you know, ha-has or whatever, and not make me look bad, because at the end of the day, we're all human. Like, you know, I just said a word that I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Like, and it's just, you catch yourself. And I think, you know, accountability too, like going into that's a whole other conversation. But trust is the biggest thing, trust in relationships. And I think building these teams, it's literally, it's just the beginning. I mean, even going into like the football world, you are used to seeing them only having their football agent, like only the person, and I mean, it's in basketball too, only the person that handles their court contracts, and anything outside of basketball was left up to them. And now, like you said, they have a marketing agent, they have a content team, like the marketing agent handles all their brand deals. I think that's another huge thing that's coming into play. You know, it used to be, you know, Nike or Adidas talking directly to the athlete. Now there's a manager that's handling those contracts for him. And it's like, I mean, it makes sense. Like, whoever it is focused on being the best athlete they can be. It's a lot of pressure to try to do all these other things. So it makes sense to have a team to be able to trust their team to do that for them. And then, of course, you get into the business side of things. And I think if there's so many elements, like if you have a lot of following on social media, I feel like a team is more inclined to want to invest in you because you're going to bring their team exposure. Right. At the end of the day, you're going to bring them ticket sales, which is what they're aiming for. And then on the flip side, you know, like if your contract is, you know, say 86 mil for 4 years, and there's no talk about you being a franchise player. Okay, what are you going to do when those 4 years are up? like who's going to want to invest in you? Are you going to have an image outside of your current team? Who's going to look at you? Like all that kind of stuff, I think, is now really, really coming into play. And then aside from wanting to invest, I think just being smart with their funds too. If like they get these brand deals, you know, if Dunkin' Donuts wants to shoot a commercial with them for X amount of money, that's money that they can spend off the bat that they didn't have before, they're not going to miss. But it's not coming from their contract money that they're going to be able to, you know, spread out for the rest of their life. Like, I mean, it's building a brand around who they are as people and building the longevity of their career and their life really as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely just starting.
Yeah. So you played basketball, so you definitely can weigh in on this as well. I think that we are just getting started, and there's a lot more room to grow. But I do think that there's still people out there who are of that old school mindset that you should. I want to say people always say keep the main thing the main thing, right? Which is, I think it's true. You know, if you're a basketball player, basketball still should be the main thing if you're in the NBA. But people will try to make it seem like sometimes if you're into other things, whether it be fashion or photography or whatever, they try to make it seem like it's a negative and like it's a distraction from the game. So what do you think is, I guess, the line between that, where you do want to showcase that you have all these other layers to you so that you can become marketable and have other options after the basketball career, but then not let that become a distraction to the point where it's taken away from your game, or to where even like a team like the Spurs, for example, right? Like people, they've been known forever to be like that kind of like strict team, right? You got like the Tim Duncans and the Kawhis, and like you don't really see these players do much outside of like the game. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like they're kind of like cut and dry. They got the international guys, Manu and Tony. They're kind of like, they're only really known for basketball and stuff. So, what is your take on that as far as, I guess, that line that is, I think that does still exist as far as not letting it become too much where it's taken away from your game?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it honestly depends on the individual player. You know, some people are going to be able to handle more than others in terms of like just their workload. But I think that that's definitely also where these trusted teams come in to handle. And it's like, you know, they do all the legwork and you just show up for a shoot.
Yeah.
Or they do all the legwork. They give you caption and copy for an Instagram post and you adjust it to your personality and then you press post. Like there's, if you have the right team, it won't feel like a lot. I mean, obviously it does get overwhelming and exhausting if you're trying to do too much, but I think just being open and vulnerable enough to say like, this is a great brand deal I'm having, you know, there's a big game coming up, maybe we should push it a week or two, and just having that open conversation is really important. I don't think there's a way, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think there's a way for it to be too much, because at the end of the day, like, yes, they're athletes, but they're also human. And I'm like, I know I've said that a billion times, but I'm so heavy on it, because if you're empty and you feel like you're not being fulfilled in anything else outside of your job, because this is their job,
yeah, you're
not going to be able to consistently pour and be the best that you can be. Like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so I think a lot of people in the outside world that just consume what they do have to kind of like shift their mindset into not only seeing them as these superhuman athletes, but seeing them as these superhumans that have, you know, things outside of what they do. But it's just, like I said, just having the right team and being able to have those conversations of like, maybe we should push this shoot, maybe we shouldn't do this event because, you know, I have to be up at 7 a.m. for weights. Like, just being able to set those boundaries as an individual person, I think, is what makes all the difference. And just being able to like compartmentalize and balance it all, which can get tricky, but
I think you bring up a great point, because I do feel like another thing, just from the athlete perspective, I'm still playing pro basketball overseas now, and it's like I've seen guys like when they retire from basketball, they don't have an identity outside of the game because they've poured so much into the game, and it's like when
Yeah.
they're not getting that love and that admiration from the fans or from people might not recognize them in the streets anymore. It's like, dang, like, well, they struggle with that
Yeah.
identity crisis because they've
Yeah.
only poured into the basketball for so long. And it's like,
Yeah.
my advice to any athlete is like, make sure you know who you are outside of basketball, or even just people in general. Like, whatever your career is, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're a doctor, whether you're in the creative space, you have to have identity outside of your 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is a 9 to 5. This is your job. This is who you are between these work hours. At the end of the day, once that's done, once you retire, once that career path is over, if you got to pivot and you don't have
Who are
anything
you?
back, it's like, who are you? You have to be able to have some type of identity outside of that. And I've seen so many people struggle with that. It's honestly the saddest thing in the world, man, because like, you have so much more to you than just basketball,
Yeah.
But it's like you haven't given yourself the opportunity to explore that because, you've been so just trained to only focus on one thing,
Yeah. I mean, and it's definitely a shift. I dealt with it at, a much lower level going into my college year. I played volleyball my first semester, and just that shift, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I dealt with that after stepping away from the game. I had poured 14 years of my life into training, and it was, wake up at 6 a.m., go to a workout before school, go to school, have athletic period, have practice after school, then, go work out again at my coach's house to get extra training in, go home, do homework, go to sleep, wake up, do it all over again.
Yeah.
That was my identity. Like, so I definitely dealt with, after stepping away, it was kind of like, even in the gym, I felt like if I didn't work out for over an hour and a half, I wasn't working out. Like, I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, 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 really important for these guys to just, and they can't do it all by themselves. I feel like they are so young and they try to do it all themselves. And then they realize they can't. Because it's a lot. I mean, and they obviously want to enjoy their life, as they should, go out, celebrate, all of that. They 100% have earned it. They should, they only get one life. They have to enjoy it, like 100%. But it's finding that balance, if you, like I said before, if you have 7 a.m. weights, why are you staying out till 4 a.m.?
Yeah.
Like you can go out, but why are you staying out till 4 a.m.? But a lot of them just don't have people who kind of like check them and keep them in that kind of balance. A lot of them are out doing this on their own.
Yeah.
So I feel like and a lot more of them, I think, are getting familiar and kind of like seeing their friends like, okay, if he's not going out, maybe I shouldn't go out, and I should wait until tomorrow when we don't have weights on Sunday. Like, it's just like those little like decisions of that really impact the long run of things. But yeah, just, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
It really is. Which is much more complex than just saying it's all about balance. But
no, for real though. I think that this is an important conversation. I didn't even have this plan or anything, but I think a lot of people go through that kind of identity crisis when whatever your main thing was stops and you have to pivot and transition. I think that there's not a lot of people who are having that conversation like, all right, what is that phase like, man, when you're trying to rediscover what you love or rediscover new passions? So for you,
yeah,
what were some things that kind of helped you transition, like when you were done with volleyball and you were in that kind of like, all right, dang, like this, I'm not an athlete anymore. What do I do? How did you transition and pick yourself up to kind of find a new identity and, find the new passion that you were, that you were passionate about?
Yeah. I'm not even gonna lie, it was a struggle. I was definitely depressed for a while. Being fully transparent, like it was hard. It was really hard because, like you said, you go from it being your entire life to, okay, nobody's holding me accountable to go to the gym.
Right.
Nobody's checking my grades to make sure I'm eligible to play. My coach isn't texting me 24 hours before to make sure that I'm not going out and drinking before a game. Like, it's just little things like that like, I think when you're having to answer to somebody your entire life and having someone keep you in check, going from shit, like I'm on my own.
Yeah.
It's a really difficult transition. I spent a lot of time in the gym. A lot. Like a lot. Probably an unhealthy amount. But I took it really slow. I think I went from training for like 6 hours, 7 hours a day from when I was in volleyball.
Oh yeah.
To like going to the gym. I would still do 2 a days. So I would go to the gym like for an hour and a half and then like go do my schoolwork, get my homework done, and then like go to the gym again, just walk. Or I would sometimes just go sit with my friends in the rec and like play pickup, and just like it would keep my mind busy because I wasn't competing at the level that I was, but I was still around it. And then kind of like slowly cut back. I think it's almost like you're an addict. Like you can't just go like cold turkey when it's been your life for 14 years. Like you have to kind of like slowly like take, like I think of like a baby when you're trying to like take them off their like little choopy. Like you have to like, okay, not tonight. And then if they cry, like, okay, for an hour. Like it's that kind of like weaning you off of it. But it was hard. And I think a lot of people struggle with it, even if it's not in the athletic world. I think just like maybe switching careers or switching, your life, taking a different path than you thought it was going to take. It's really hard to kind of like come to terms with it. But I think what helped me is just kind of like being very unapologetic in what I needed. And if I was having a bad day, not feeling guilty for staying in bed till 12. Like if I didn't have responsibilities for that day, and, just kind of like giving myself grace and knowing that the transition is hard, and not making yourself feel bad for having to make these transitions. Like a lot of people say like, just get up and do it. And like, like suck it up, which I think sometimes, yeah, you have to put your big girl pants on and do what you need to do. But again, it's just kind of like reading the room and honoring what you need at the end of the day and being unapologetic. Like I think a lot of people fall into, well, if I'm not doing this, if I'm not actively working, if I'm not accomplishing, I'm not succeeding. And that's not true. Like you can rest. It's okay to rest. And like the world, I've heard people say like the world can wait. It really can. Like if you're not okay, you're not going to be able to be yourself for everybody around you. So you have to like check yourself and make sure you're good. 100%. I think that just being unapologetic in what you need, honestly.
Yeah. I think, you brought up another great point. I feel like I experience this even now, like, especially as a creator, like burnout is real. And I feel like, especially for me personally, it's like, I'm still playing overseas. Right now I'm doing a little bit of coaching. I'm trying to run this podcast platform and stuff. I got my own personal brand I'm trying to like do stuff with. And it's like, you can always feel like, dang, like, all right, well, I haven't posted in 2 days. Like, dang, I got to post something, you know what I'm saying? Or like, all right, well, I might get off practice one night. It might be 9 p.m. And I might really want to just watch The Bachelor or something like that. And I'm like, dang, I should be able to.
The Bachelor.
I love The Bachelor. The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise, Bachelorette, all the above. I got to watch The Bachelor.
Golden Bachelor. Have you seen that one?
What? Which one?
The Golden Bachelor.
I haven't. I watched Charity season, and then the Golden Bachelor was like going to come on after that in Paradise. Yeah. But I've been so busy, so I haven't even been able to tune into it. Have you watched it?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's hilarious.
I'm gonna check the reviews first to see if it's good before I tune in. But I watched the last probably like 7 or 8 seasons of The Bachelor. So
that's hilarious.
Yes. But I be coming home, I'd be like, dang man, should I watch Paradise? You know what I'm saying? I haven't started the season, but then I'd be like, dang, well, I gotta edit this video for tomorrow. Like, let me just edit. And I feel like you get into a routine of just like edit. Like, all right, post. Like, all right, schedule a guest. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like you always feel like you have to be doing something when it comes to this space, and it's tough I think that's the hardest part about being in this space. People will always look at like influencers and be like, oh, all you have to do is post on Instagram for your.
But it's a lot.
Bro, that is a whole job, bro. Like editing, bro. It takes
And
hours
it's
to shoot a
24/7.
30-second
Like,
video. It never
no,
stops. Like you could shoot a video for 5 hours and it comes out to be 30 seconds long, if that. You know what I'm saying? Like
I know some influencers that would prefer to have a 9 to 5. Like at this point,
no,
yeah,
legit.
it's just
So I kind of want to get your experience with that too, because I feel like you said a good thing as far as like sometimes like you had to give yourself that time to just rest, and like you had a quote in the article. It was like, yo, at the end of the day, like even if you're not pulling 3 all-nighters in a row, or I feel like you all have to edit. It's like you're still working towards your goals and your dreams.
yeah.
I kind of want to give you the opportunity to just expound upon that a little bit, because I think it's so true, man. I think even that's something I gotta do a better job of doing, like in my own life, because I feel like I'm always thinking of, all right, well, what are you doing with this hour of idle time? Edit something,
Yeah.
like do something,
Yeah. I think just like anything else, it's a balance. And I think it's a fine line between being professional and being punctual, and giving yourself grace and knowing that nothing is ever that deep. Like if there's a hard deadline, obviously, there's times when the all-nighter is going to have to happen. Like you might get home late, you might whatever, but if you're being paid, $5,000 for a video that has a hard deadline of a certain date, you got to pull that shit off. Like but on the flip side, if it's a flexible deadline and you're the one that's putting the pressure on yourself, like, oh, I'm gonna feel guilty if I don't do this, I promise you the same supporters that were supporting you on Wednesday are gonna support you on Thursday. Like if they are your real people. And isn't that what you want? Like you don't want people who are gonna be wishy-washy because they don't humanize you and want to be mad because you didn't post Wednesday at 8 p.m. Like
yeah,
it's not the end of the world. And I think if you have this passion to create and have this passion to connect people and have, all of this, it's being able to continue to do that in the long run. And what does that look like? That I feel like in my case, it's giving myself grace and being able to put the phone down. When electronics are your life,
yeah,
like are your job, it's very, very important to be able to unplug. And sometimes it's forced. I catch myself like doom scrolling and just like, or even on Pinterest, like, oh, this couch is cute. And I'm like, girl, put your phone down. Like you work on your phone 24/7. Like you need to unplug sometimes, but you don't realize it. It's just like kind of this, like you're like programmed almost to just, and you have to like make the conscious effort to be like, okay, I need 30 minutes of zen. Like literally. Yeah, it's just it can get to be a lot, but giving yourself grace, and like I said, it's a fine line between having those hard deadlines and being professional and knowing when it's okay to watch Bachelor.
yes, period.
Because I've done that too. I'll come home and I'm like, damn, I really don't want to edit. Even with Spurs, like we would have sponsored ads after games, and there was game nights that it would run. We wouldn't get home until like 1 a.m. And I'm like, okay, do y'all need this edit tonight or do you need it in the morning? And they're like, no, we need it in the morning by 10 a.m. so we can get it out by 11. I'm like, cool. I'm grabbing Canes and I'm gonna go home and watch Power because I am burnt out from the game. And it's just like making those little like tweaks, and again being like having that communication with whoever is in your space and in your circle, and being like, okay, I need this little mental break for the night. I need a few hours off. I'll get it to you by 8 a.m. So then you'd set your alarm, work on it. I knew how long it was going to take me to do that specific edit, so I knew I needed an hour at most. So I'd wake up 6 a.m., get it to them by 7. If they needed, any edits or whatever, it was back to me before we needed to get it out.
Right.
But I still was able to serve myself and relax the night before versus going home and feeling like I need to impress my boss. I need to get this to them by 12. Like they're not pressed. They really aren't. So it's like, why am I pressing myself?
No,
Yeah.
facts. That's great. That's great. I'm not listening to you. I was taking these mental notes in my head, like, yes, preach, preach, preach. So kind of speaking on like the whole NBA Spurs situation, I want to talk to you, man, because I feel like I've seen a trend of a bunch of people who have been working for teams and like have went the freelance route, but you have also people who are like, yo, they maybe are trying to get that big break. Like, I want to work in the NBA. Like, I want to work for a team. It's like my dream. And it's like, there's a huge just cause and not cause and effect. There's just it's like a scale of like positives, pros, and cons of like working for a team, doing freelance and stuff. I won't say the team name, but I've talked to some of my friends and they're like, yeah, man, like when you're working for a team, like you can't have a relationship with the players. So, like they're like, you're not allowed to do that. Like you got all these crazy hours and like you mentioned the deadlines and working all through the night and then the pay isn't great. Like, and obviously, but you can be, the access, right? You're in the locker room, you're on the baseline, like you get to travel and do all these type of things, right? That maybe a freelancer won't get. The freelancer got to shoot from the stands. You don't get that locker room access unless you're somebody, gradient visuals and you're the bronze guy or whatever the case may be. You can get in the locker room. What was your experience in, I guess, deciding to pivot from the corporate route and working for a team and deciding to do something different? Because I know that I don't know, it's a trend that I feel like I've seen a lot of people who I know personally make, and I'm curious to know what is going on that's making people kind of pivot. Or I guess you could just speak on your specific situation. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like what would share kind of some of those pros and cons that went into your decision?
Yeah. I mean, I think you kind of touched on it being a dream for so many people. I think it's a dream for so many people because they see the glitz and glamour of it. They see, the highlight reels that people in the industry put out on Instagram. They see people standing on the sideline taking a video and they're like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they realize until they're in the role all that actually goes into it. I'll say myself, I have so much respect for people, for every individual social team, because as a consumer, if you're just scrolling on Instagram and you're like, oh, okay, it's just, a 15-second video of Keldon Johnson's dunk in the fourth quarter, like, whatever, I'm not going to like it. I'm like, I stressed myself for 30 seconds getting that out for you. You better like it.
Facts.
So it's kind of like just being on the back end and seeing all the moving gears that go into it that makes you really respect the craft. But on the flip side, like you said, there's like this amazing part of it where you get the access and you're, in these teams and you're in these rooms and all this kind of stuff. But on the flip side, you're kind of getting treated like it's not worth it almost.
Yeah.
And I will say that every team's culture is different. Everyone has their own experience. I had an amazing experience in terms of the people that I worked with. I worked with amazing people. But from the professional standpoint, you kind of touched on it. It was a lot that was pushed out in such a short amount of time that it almost felt like it wasn't impactful. And we were pushing out so much content that, I mean, I know it was impactful in the sense that as a consumer, you see 4 videos in a day and you're like, okay, cool. You don't know all the work that went into those 4 videos. You don't know how many edits it was going back and forth with digital. You don't know how long we were planning that one stupid 30-second video. Like, it's not stupid, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's so much that goes into it, that you almost have to like check yourself and be like, okay, is this worth it? And I will say it has its perks. It's, as a woman and as a minority woman, there were countless times that I was the only woman in rooms. And I think it's crazy because of the day and age that we're in, that's still the case. I hope that changes. I really, really hope that changes. And that's why I love women in sports. I'm like, go us, honestly. But yeah, I think my main reason why I stepped away, I mean, my contract was up, so it was kind of like a glorified internship position. And it was a year long. I was up for a promotion towards the end of my contract. That was a whole other story that I can tell you off air. But I didn't end up getting it, which is fine, you know, like I feel like everything happens for a reason. And at the time it felt really like it hurt because it was like, damn, like I thought I was doing really well in my role. I mean, my peers were telling me I was perfect for it. You know, like it was kind of just like, why? Like you kind of just question. Now I know why, because of the role that I'm in now. Everything has to happen for a reason.
Yeah.
But I feel like at the end of the day, a team is gonna prioritize the entire team and the entire franchise as a whole. They're gonna want to make the franchise look good. Players come and go. If you're not a franchise player, I'm sorry to say, they're gonna move on just as quick as they got you. Like their focus is on the 16 or 17 guys. It's not on the individual players, which is completely understandable. Like that's the dynamic of a team. I see them as individuals. I would much rather be able to tell individual stories. And I think that's where like my main thing going into being, you know, in freelance is you kind of get to be in charge of that. And then speaking like on the business side, when you want a certain video to be done, you have to first pitch it. Then, I mean, there's obviously a lot more steps than I'm going to mention, but you have to first pitch it. You have to get it approved by PR. And then you have to actually shoot it, edit it, and then get it approved again to make sure, you know, it fits the brand. And I think as time goes on, you kind of know, like, if you've gotten edits back in the past or like, what's the voice, or like, you kind of just learn like, oh, this isn't going to be approved. So, like, you just kind of like pick that up. But I think that majorly was one of the things that kind of just like going through all these ropes versus being able to talk directly to the athlete and say, what do you want your image to be?
Right.
Let's make that happen.
Right.
And I think working for a team, you can't really do that because there's so many people that you have to go through because they're thinking of the entirety of the team. And if this person does this, how is it going to affect everybody else? Well, they're their own person. So why, like, you as a PR person, you know, you're going to handle that as it comes because all of these people have their individual personalities. They're not cookie cutter basketball players.
Right.
Like, they're not. So I think that was the main thing, just being able to have that, you know, like one-on-one, like, what do you want for your life? What do you want that to look like? What brands do you want to work with? What kind of content do you want to put out? How often do you want to post? You know, if you're going to the club, do you want me to go shoot that? Like, do you want pictures with your friends? Like, you can't do that when you're working for a team. And that goes into being friends with them. I think when you're sticking a camera in someone's face consistently, you kind of get to know who they are.
Right.
Like, and I'm huge on that. I was always a content person that if I'm going and covering something and you're there, I'm going to have a conversation with you before I stick a camera in your face, just because I wouldn't expect for you to give me your raw personality and trust me to give you your raw personality if you don't know who I am, at least my name. I'm not saying you gotta, you know, talk to me about your kids right off the bat, but like we gotta have some sort of, you know, mutual grounding. And a lot of times people don't like that. People don't like especially the younger generation coming in and being a lot more relatable and a lot of, you know, it's a lot. I'm like trying to word it in a way that doesn't make people sound bad, because it's not. Like, I think a lot of people that work for individual franchises are so stuck in like the old mindset of everything has to be professional. Everything, I mean, and you can be professional and still have relationships. You can be professional and still have these friendships. Like, just because we're smiling and laughing, like, I don't understand why that's a threat. Like, I really don't. And I feel like if guys have experienced it, you can imagine how it is as a girl.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of dealing with all that outside of the actual work that was kind of just like, is this even worth it? Like, and I think that's a topic that's kind of like taboo in a way, especially among women. Among women and men, like having that conversation. And I know a lot of men in the industry recognize it, but it's really hard, like as a woman, to navigate that and to kind of like go into spaces and know like there's assumptions right off the bat of, you know, being a woman in a certain space. And it's like, I'm here to do my job. I'm here to take a video. Like, I don't know what y'all think. But and I like to think I'm a very personable person. I like to laugh. I like to have fun with people. And I think in traditional spaces, it's seen, it's just looked at in a bad light, which, like I said, it's just, that's just where you have to kind of take a step back and be like, is all of it worth it? And what else can you do to stay in this space but keep your mental in check?
Yeah. Now, going off that, like, what has that experience been like? I feel like, especially as like I feel like it's a little bit different when you're working for a team, because like if you're a woman working for the Spurs and you're with a guy, then it's like you can put, all right, I work for the Spurs, right? But I feel like if you're a freelance photographer and you're with a guy and you're shooting for them, I feel like automatically people are gonna think like you're hooking up with them, or like there's some romantic energy involved there. Like,
Yeah.
what has your experience been like with that, or how have you had to try to, I guess, I don't know, I won't even say deny, because if you're not, you don't even have to deny anything, because it's like you know what you're doing is professional. But like, what has been your experience of dealing with that and things that people will say or comments and things like that?
With clients in particular, like the one-on-one conversations, it's just setting boundaries from the start. And I mean, you're a guy, you know, guys will try. They will try. Shoot and shoot, as they say.
Of course.
But it's like setting those boundaries and kind of being like, you know, I'm here to do my job. My job is to make you look good, make you get money, make you have your personality shown. That's what we're here for. If it's funny, people will like, I've had somebody one time be like, oh, I want to be more than friends. I'm like, okay, you can be my client. Like we don't need this. Like, we don't need to go back. Like, I'm 24. I'm trying to establish my career. I carry myself very professionally. I don't like to mix the two. So I think it's just setting boundaries, but also being realistic and knowing that when you're in this space, these are people that you're around all the time. It's inevitable that, you know, you're going to find some sort of attraction to somebody at some point.
Right.
But it's being able to kind of like set that line and be like, especially in the freelance world, like, okay, if you're my client and just that. If you're not, like, if you want to pursue something, it's that conversation of, you're not going to be my client. Like, you can't, because I feel like once you kind of like blur those lines, it's very hard to go back. It's very hard to say, like, it's just very hard to go back. And I think especially when, you know, we're in the industry that we're in and in the public eye and in the light. I know of a couple that's like, the girl is a reporter and she's a reporter for her boyfriend's team, which I think is amazing. Like, that we've evolved into that being a norm. Because at the end of the day, we're all grown. Like, if you can handle yourself professionally, why is it an issue?
Right.
Like, or, you know, like just having, not even in the relationship realm, if you're just having friendships, you know, I think I know who you were talking about. You were saying about the friendships and team members, but stuff like that. I know other instances, you know, where guys are friends with guys, like guys, male employees are friends with male players, and it's not seen as an issue. Right. So why is it when a girl enters the space, you automatically assume she can't handle herself professionally? Like, it's just kind of like that stigma of like, I'm great at my job. Let me prove that I'm great at my job. Like, you don't have to have this assumption of me. And I think a lot of women deal with it. I don't think a lot of women speak on it at all.
The team, I'm feeling my team.
And obviously there's a lot that goes into it. You know, there's obviously scandals. There's, you know, people who have the wrong intentions. There's, you know, there's just, you know, weirdos and bad people in the world.
Yeah.
So I get the protection when you're in a space with people of the opposite sex. Totally get it. But I think what I hope there is to be in the future is that kind of like taking away that automatic assumption of seeing a girl and a guy working in the same space and automatically assuming because they're laughing, they're flirting. Like, bro, I might have just told a great joke. Like, right. Like, I'm a comedian. I'm not flirting with him, bro. I'm one of the guys at the end of the day. Like, and I think that too, kind of just having like that communication with the boys, with any client, even girls, just kind of like, we're gonna have this relationship. If I'm sticking a camera in your face and I'm asking you to give me your raw personality, I would assume that you trust me, you know, and the trust is a friendship. Like, it's a lot. But it's a lot to navigate. And I just hope that's why I love seeing women in the space, because it's kind of like, okay, people trust us. And like, we're proving that we're doing the damn thing, and we're doing it professionally, and we're doing it well. Yeah. And I know there's guys that obviously respect us, and there's like see it as a whole. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Facts. No, appreciate it. I wanted to ask you, because you talked about helping athletes like build their brands, and like that kind of back and forth that goes, hey, like, what do you want your brand to look like, or how do you want your image to look like on social media? I was wondering if you could kind of share any of those dialogues maybe that maybe you've had with the athlete that you've worked with, maybe where that, because I feel like a lot of people are curious as far as how that conversation goes when it comes to an athlete talking to a photographer or a videographer or somebody who's, you know, putting out work for them, as far as what that process looks like in creating something that's going up on the internet, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'm curious if you could share any of those interactions, like just what that back and forth is like.
Yeah, I mean, blanket, I think creators have to keep in mind there's a billion people reaching out to these guys wanting to capture them. Especially, you touched on it a little while ago, like everyone's picking up a camera now, everyone's deeming themselves as a content creator, which kudos. Like I mentioned before, like there can be 100 shooters and everyone's going to have their own individual view, but when it comes to, you know, securing a client, it's kind of like, okay, why are they going to choose you over X, Y, and Z that's been in their DMs since 2017? Like like it's just, and I think that's where it goes to relationships. Like you have to be able to, if you're your authentic self and you can show that to a person, whether that be a person that plays football, a person that plays basketball, a person that, you know, is in any of these spaces, being able to be personable and show your humanity I think that is where those conversations kind of skyrocket. Like being able to say like building your brand on Instagram or whatever the platform may be, they see the work. So like, okay, so for example, this past summer, I worked, it was called Elite Week. It was hosted by Athletes First, which is a service management firm. They have a lot of football players. And I met 2 of the agents. At Elite Week, there was probably 60 plus NFL players. And I was one of maybe 15 shooters there, one of 2 girls. So it was a pretty saturated space. But even at that, it was kind of like, it was 3 days long. And after the first day, it was kind of like, okay, you have the opportunity. You're in a room with 60 NFL players. Like, when else are you going to get this opportunity to possibly, create relationships? And at that point, I wasn't even thinking about securing clients. I was thinking about make these relationships. So next year, when they come back to Elite Week, it's a familiar face. They're more comfortable with you shooting them. Like, I was just thinking long term.
Right.
So just kind of like having that courage to go up to them and be like, and I will be honest, I humble a lot of them sometimes. I'll walk it up and I'll be like, you got an Instagram?
Oh Lord.
And then they'll be like, girl, you know who I am. And but it puts them in a position to be like, oh, like, do you actually not know who I am? Or like it kind of gets their mind thinking. And it's not, I don't think it's being manipulative. I just think it's, these guys are so used to people like worshiping the ground that they walk on and throwing themselves at them. That's kind of like when someone else comes at them and is kind of like more interested in making a connection versus seeing what they can give to them, that goes a long way. So I don't it's kind of funny, like the approach, but I feel like it's more about making the connection than it is, like I said, trying to get something out of someone. You can't go into relationships thinking this is going to be, it's not a transaction. And if it's a transaction to certain people, I mean, I hope you're successful, but I think it won't get you far. Yeah. Just be a good person, like at the end of the day. But yeah, I think just kind of like approaching them as a human. And I think my route kind of like, I'll ask them for their Instagram, and then it's kind of like fresh in their mind, like, oh, this person just asked me for their Instagram. Let me go to my following to check it out. And then they'll go, and you're standing right there. So it's kind of like, if they don't, it's kind of like, you're rude. Right. Like, so they kind of like feel pressured in a way to go. And then that's where like your brand is there. So they get to see your work, and they're like, I've had numerous people, because I'm a girl, it's kind of like, bruh, but I've had numerous people like do just that. And they're like, damn, like your work is actually good. Yeah. And I'm like, it's the actually for me, because
it's crazy. Actually, it's crazy.
Because what was the assumption here? Like, I wasn't coming up, but that's where it is. Like, I'm not just coming up to you because I'm a girl and I want to flirt with you. Like, I have a craft. I'm passionate in my craft. Like, I want to work for you, bro. Like, what? But it's just, and I think that's where like it was frustrating. And I think sometimes there's instances where it's still frustrating that even the assumption is there, like from the guys, that you have these weird intentions. And it's like being able to like kind of like joke about it and be like, bruh, like I don't want a relationship. Like I'm just trying to shoot some content, bro. Yeah. And like kind of just like having that like funny like banter and just being a person, like being a person. And so then that like you get to show your brand. They'll scroll on whatever you give them. If it's, a website, if it's a LinkedIn, if you get their number, like texting them right away so it's fresh in their head, and then following up, like just like little things like that. And I think there's also a fine line between following up and like reaching out and being borderline annoying.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm sure you've probably experienced it, but there's a lot of people in this industry that it's like, bruh, I saw your text. I don't want to work with you.
Chill. Like relax.
Like, trust me. But yeah, just kind of like being like, yo, if you ever want, and I kind of like go that route. Like I'll show them my work, they'll say the actually part, and then I'll be like, if you ever want content, like I'm here, like just reach out to me. I travel, whatever. Just kind of like making yourself available, and then just like staying relevant in a sense where you keep reaching out. And sometimes it's even reaching out to them without the intention of them being your client.
Yeah.
It's like reaching out just to say like, hey, good game, or like swiping up on a story and being like, oh, that shit's cool, or like just like little stuff like that I feel like it sets you apart in a sense that you're building relationships without the transactional expectation. So
Right.
you're not reaching out and saying like, hey, can I shoot you? Hey, can I come? Can you find me to shoot your game this week? Like, you're not like, it's not that, because at the end of the day, like they have a million people coming to them like that. So it's kind of like, be different.
No, literally, that's a fact. Now I think you dropped a bunch of gems, man. And I want to ask you kind of like just taking it all kind of encompassing, right, of everything you've experienced, everything you still have ahead of you, right? Like what would you say if you could accomplish, one thing in your career, or I guess a major goal for yourself, right? Like when you think about where you're from, right? You're that small town in the valley in Texas, and how far you've already come, right? Where do you see your career going in the future, for yourself? What is, I guess, something that's like, yeah, if I could accomplish this, man, like that would be amazing. Like how do you envision that?
I guess like my definition of like ultimate success is having freedom, like time freedom, freedom to have my bills on auto pay and not think about it, like just having not having to stress. And I think I'm not sure what it looks like professionally. I think that a goal for me, with this world expanding, is kind of like going the route that a lot of creators are going and working for players individually. I'm super interested in brand marketing, kind of just like connecting these guys to whatever they need. Like I have a client that one week he'll need me to, style an outfit for him, and then he's looking for a certain Marnie shoes, so I source it for him through like stylists that I know, or like another week he needs help with the social post, so I'll help him get that carousel together. Like it's kind of like anything you need, I'm gonna figure out a way to make it happen for you, and if I don't, I'm gonna find someone that can. I didn't plan on going back into the corporate world per se,
Yeah.
but I'm so excited because I just feel like as an umbrella of the entire like basketball world, I feel like the experience is just going to be different. The culture already seems so different and seems so, welcoming and inviting, and just like there's a lot more creative freedom. I think that's another thing that I like didn't touch on for my reason leaving, is just there's a lot of like goals that are written for you.
Right.
So being in a bigger space, obviously there's still going to be a level of that. You have certain things to meet and all that kind of stuff, but it's just a lot more creative freedom, which I'm super excited about. But yeah, I think just the time and financial freedom is the goal, and maybe getting into brand marketing, kind of just being a one-stop shop. for these guys. And just, I mean, I care so deeply about them, and especially the ones that I know personally, like just wanting to see them thrive and succeed in not only their sport, but like everything that they're, you know, involved in and have an interest and passion in.
Yeah.
For real.
That's major. So last question I'll ask you before we get into a couple of quick here that we have is just thinking back on your career so far, right? What advice would you give to 10-year-old Ashley, you know, given where you are now, the experiences that you've had, and also, you know, with in mind everything that you've accomplished up to this point, you know, like this new we're about to go into with the NBA, which is major, and obviously congrats again with that. What advice would you give to, you know, 10-year-old Ashley about, you know, what's ahead of her?
The world is yours. Don't limit yourself. I think it goes without saying, but don't listen to people who want to put a ceiling on your ability. I think even if it comes from yourself, limiting yourself, like there's always room to grow. Something that was always told to me as an athlete is there's always going to be somebody that's better than you. You're always going to be in a room where there's someone that's, you know, can jump higher or can move faster or whatever. And if that's you got to go into another room. Like there's always growth that can be had. So just trusting yourself, giving yourself grace, and not letting people's opinions affect you too much. I think you can use it as fuel. Kind of like, I've seen a quote one time that was like, I'm just full of quotes. I'm like a walking Pinterest board. But it was like something along the lines of like, if someone, like when someone tells you can't do something, do it twice and take pictures or something like that.
I've heard that one before. I can't remember exactly how it goes.
Yeah. But that just like, it's like, oh, you think I can't? Watch me.
All right, so the last segment we got is quick hitter. So you gotta say the first thing that comes to your mind. With these
oh my God. Okay.
questions. Number one, first one is favorite photo you've ever taken.
Oh, one of Isaiah Simmons. He's like this.
Is it okay? I'm gonna have to find out yours.
Like a little tree in the back. Yeah.
Okay. All right, bet. Second one is, since we're talking about TV shows, I gotta ask you this now. What is your favorite TV show that you've watched?
Ever?
Favorite, number one.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, you good.
That's a hard one. The first one that comes to mind is Power. But I feel like Ghost was better than Power. Might be a hot take, but
I actually love both Power and Ghost, so I don't think that's a hot take. But I have to finish Ghost. I haven't finished it yet. I gotta catch up on the latest season.
Yeah.
That's a great show. All right. Favorite NBA city.
Woo. I've only experienced a few. I feel like I just have to say San Antonio for now. And then
you can't say a hometown team. You cannot do that. That's not allowed.
I mean, come back to me in a year when I've experienced a little bit more. Okay. I can't say a city's my favorite if I haven't been there and haven't experienced the arena.
Okay, fair. All right. Last one. Favorite Tex-Mex food.
It's all the same.
What? No, it's not. You have to have more favorite.
Honestly, you can't go wrong with street tacos. Like, but
street tacos?
Yeah.
True.
But I'm very picky. It depends how they're made. I will say food in the, like, people always are like, oh my God, food in San Antonio, like the Mexican food is amazing. They've never been here. They've never been further south because but
So the
like
valley
Tex-Mex is cool, but like you gotta experience like Mexican food.
Okay. Are you Mexican?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What's your favorite Mexican food? What's like favorite Mexican dish?
Either entomatadas or mole.
I'm about
So
to Google this. I have to Google those.
so entomatadas are, I mean, you can make it with corn or flour, but it's corn tortillas with tomato sauce, like a type of tomato sauce, and then cheese on top. Literally so simple, but it's really good.
Okay. Bet. Well, we could sit up here and talk all day because me and you are both talkers, but I won't man. I know you got things to do, man. So the last question we always ask all of our guests is, who should we have on the What's in Your Bag podcast? And whoever you say, you got to get in your point guard bag and give us the assist and help us get them on here.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm like, let me go through my IG real quick. Like in the industry?
Yeah, like it could be a player, this could be a photographer, this could be a stylist, somebody who you think has a dope story that you think, people will benefit from hearing. We've had a wide range of people on here. We've had designers, like I said, players, photographers, managers. We've had people who do social. We've had everything.
You've had JoJo on, right?
JoJo Fetterman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I know. A girl called her name's Joelle. Joelle Live. She hosts a podcast called Pucker Up, and she has a lot of athletes on, and she asks them questions, and each question they don't want to answer, they have to eat a sour candy.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, she was in Sports Illustrated last year. Beautiful, amazing personality. I think she'd be really cool.
Fire. Okay, cool. So we can connect after this, and you can go ahead and throw me the live, man. We can go ahead and get that done.
Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. Well, this has been a dope episode. Actually, I definitely, again, just want to say congrats on your new role. Thank you for coming on. You dropped a bunch of gems, and I'm gonna have to hold you to that, man. We got to circle back to this in a year or two, man. Once you've been to some cities, get some new gems, hear some new stories, and definitely do a follow up. But we definitely appreciate you for coming on today.
We'll definitely do a follow up for sure.
All righty, guys. This has been another episode of the What's in Your Bag podcast presented by Bet Online. As always, remember to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, give us a 5-star rating, all the above. It goes a long way. Until next time, folks. Peace.
Suave. I've been in my bag for a while, I'm invincible. Story of a young boss, grinding shit get critical. Calling on my bros one time, cause you special. I had some hoop dreams of right rounds for my mental. Every target that I shoot is on point like a pencil. Different route, change relationships, I'm so sorry. Came up from the trenches and I made it, I say hardly.